Get ready for more. The Force is female from Star Wars director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who is supposed to be directing the upcoming Rey film that will focus on Rey's character rebuilding the Jedi Order following Disney's atrocious Star Wars sequel trilogy. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. Star Wars director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy declares, quote, "It's about time we had a woman come forward to shape the story in a galaxy far, far away." The implication there being that a woman has never shaped the galaxy far, far away. Utterly absurd, absurd comment. Straight up lies, gaslighting to the extreme. It is what we expect from Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm. So let's listen to what she had to say here. She spoke with CNN's Christy Lou Stout. Ironically, Christy Lou Stout said this first. Filmmaker and activist Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is the only female director to have won 2 Academy Awards by the age of 37. She's also the first woman and the first person of color to direct a Star Wars film, and it's set to be released in 2026. So she obviously has not directed a Star Wars film yet. If it's still set to be released in 2026, it has not come out yet. And we've seen this happen before, where they announced that Patty Jenkins would be directing a Rogue Squadron. She would have been the first female director for a Star Wars film. However, that film never came to fruition. It was supposed to be released this winter. It never happened. So we'll see if Obaid-Chinoy's Rey film actually gets made or not, or if it will suffer the same fate as Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron film. But let's listen to what Sharmeen had to say here.
I'm very thrilled about the project because I think what we are about to create is something very special. And we're in 2024 now. And I think it's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape the story in a galaxy far, far away.
All right. These comments are not out of the ordinary for Obaid-Chinoy. Speaking with Vice News on TikTok back in May 2023, the director said, "My name is Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, and I'm directing the next Star Wars film. I'm excited about bringing Daisy Ridley back into the Star Wars galaxy and in telling her story. I'm excited to be immersed in the Jedi Academy, and I think there's so much excitement around the new Jedi Order. I've always kicked open doors that were previously closed, and I think my feeling is that there is a critical mass of women who have begun to move forward in places that were previously closed to them." So clearly pushing this feminist messaging that we have seen throughout Star Wars under the helm of Kathleen Kennedy. The Force is female. And that really gets us to exactly the underlying lie that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is making here, claiming that she's the first one really making or shaping the Star Wars story as a female. It's utterly absurd given the fact that Kathleen Kennedy has been shaping Star Wars stories since she took over as president once George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to the Walt Disney Company. In fact, Kennedy made it abundantly clear they were going to inject a feminist perspective and feminist messaging into the franchise from the very get-go. She told Forbes the most powerful women's summit in 2015. I think the interesting path we've had is the conversation that took place around consumer products, because there were a lot of companies that were in place who, frankly, didn't initially feel that Star Wars was for girls. And when you have a company situation where between Lucasfilm and Disney, we were all looking at the situation saying, no, with Star Wars, we have to change this. We have to make sure that we create products that are, in a sense, appealing to both boys and girls. What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is the fact that you clearly stopped making products made for boys and only focused on products made for girls. So you are obviously lying there. And that is what's wrong with that, because we have seen the fruits of your labor, Kathleen Kennedy. And then we also had this here where you pretty much go on to say that that's exactly what you were going to do in the first place, while trying to hide the fact that you're going to try and appeal to both, which you didn't. And she went on to say, the fact that the company was bought by the Walt Disney Company has been amazing, because they very much support the fact that we are trying to grow in the workforce a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company. And with the movies that we are making and with the protagonists that we're putting in the stories. So I get a huge amount of support with that. So clearly support coming from the top at the Walt Disney Company. Who's at the top of the Walt Disney Company? Bob Iger. So, and then Kathleen Kennedy, obviously at the top of Lucasfilm, where they were trying to inject this feminist messaging into the Star Wars movies. This is 2015, before The Force Awakens even came out, before we even saw any of the sequel trilogies. She was telling us what was going to happen here. And then she said that they were doing it behind the scenes, right? Women, remember, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is basically claiming that women aren't really shaping the story. Well, this is what Kathleen Kennedy was saying in 2015. We have 50% of our executive team are women. And 6 out of 8 of the people in my story group are women. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be surprised that we're making Star Wars movies. And the majority of the people involved in the development of those stories are women. And I think it's making a huge difference in the stories that we're trying to tell. So there you have it, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy gaslighting us. As always, a Lucasfilm employee gaslighting people, a Walt Disney Company employee gaslighting people. This is what they do. This is their MO. These people cannot help themselves. Uh, all they do is lie. They cannot help themselves. It's really a shame. It's a shame. That culture over there at the Walt Disney Company is truly, truly tragic. They need massive, massive amounts of leadership change. And I don't think anything is going to change over there without huge amounts of leadership change. They need a whole house clearing. We can even go back further, though. This idea that women were not involved in the story is utterly ridiculous. Kathleen, George Lucas's first wife, Marsha Lucas, was integral to the process of creating what we now know as Star Wars: A New Hope. She even won an Academy Award for her work in the editing process of the film. So clearly, a woman was indeed helping shape the story back in the 70s with the original Star Wars film. Obviously, she has credited George for coming up with all the ideas, the characters, the names, the story beats, and everything like that. But she did have influence on the film in the editing room. And I think she shares in the success that George has. And she's also been critical of Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm. This is what she told Star Wars author J.W. Rinsler in his book, Howard Kazanjian, A Producer's Life. Now that Kathleen Kennedy is running Lucasfilm and making movies, it seems to me that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about Star Wars. They don't get it. And JJ is writing these stories. When I saw that movie where they kill Han Solo, I was furious. I was furious when they killed Han Solo. Absolutely, positively, there was no rhyme or reason to it. I thought, you don't get the Jedi story. You don't get the magic of Star Wars. You're getting rid of Han Solo. And she also went on to lampoon The Last Jedi, saying, and then at the end of this last one, The Last Jedi, they have Luke disintegrate. They killed Han Solo. They killed Luke Skywalker. And they don't have Princess Leia anymore. And they're spitting out movies every year. So I think we have enough proof, enough evidence that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is an utter liar. She is following in the footsteps of Kathleen Kennedy, another liar. And these people are not going to be changing Star Wars for the good. They are only going to be destroying it with their feminist messaging and their whole motto, the Force is female. It's utterly disgusting. And it's truly a shame what has happened to the Star Wars franchise. And you can see what poor leadership does. It truly does destroy things that should be great. And we're really missing good Star Wars stuff. And it's because of Kathleen Kennedy that we are indeed missing it. But I leave it to you guys. What do you make of what Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy had to say here? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.